And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. In the last few years, companies worldwide had to let go thousands of employees in a bid to downsize their workforce and keep their heads above water. Job retraining is one of the ways these employees can re-enter the workforce. Retraining means to train again a new subject for a new job and often for a new company or organization. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2002.
Out of the 300 or so Skeena Cellulose employees terminated last week, about 160 of them were from the Prince Rupert pulp mill. When a deal is finally done to sell the company and the dust is settled, the number of casualties could be even higher. Removing that many jobs from the city's economy could have some pretty big effects.
With the downsizing and the loss of disposable income, we could expect that 250 job loss to account for at least another 250 to 500 jobs within the community, for a total aggregate effect of somewhere between 500 and 750 jobs.
That means putting people back to work as soon as possible is a priority. Although it hasn't had much to do with the Skeena Cellulose situation, it appears that responsibility has been placed squarely on the shoulders of the federal government.
At this point, all we can offer is our regular type programming, which is retraining for the individuals. We cannot get involved in actual group training.
The North Coast Career Resource Center is the organization that HRDC has contracted to help workers displaced by the Skeena Cell situation. This past fall, it began that task by sending out letters to all pulp mill employees to advise them of the center's services and to invite them to an information session.
We've had about a 25% response, which from a marketing point of view is not bad. And we've provided intensive sort of looks at labor market information, rudimentary computer training so that people are able to go and do their own labor market information. And also we've conducted pretty intensive assessments, both academically and personality-wise, so that we can help people look at different occupations, look at different routes to employment.
Assuming SCI doesn't end up bankrupt, it's expected that about 260 people will lose their jobs at the pulp mill. Preste says the resource center is prepared to handle the larger volumes of traffic.
We've developed all of these group sessions, which allows us to deal with pretty huge numbers quite quickly and efficiently, but everybody does meet individually with a counselor as well to develop a return to work action plan, which may or may not include retraining. Currently we have people who have upgraded in their occupational first aid, who've upgrading welding, people who have gone in entirely different directions if they aren't already skilled.
If it's found that the workers do need retraining, it doesn't mean that they will have to go it alone financially, as there is funding available to help them put food on the table while going through the process.
There's sort of three different scenarios. One is that people are perhaps helped with their tuition and books and continue to get their EI payments or benefits. When their EI benefits are starting to run out, then they can be switched over to a training allowance, which is negotiated according to their needs. And the third case would be where people are seeking retraining outside of the community, but they have a family here and where they have to maintain mortgage payments, etc., then there is a possibility of receiving a training allowance or a living away allowance.
Another great resource in Prince Rupert is the Hecate Strait Employment Development Society. Although not involved in retraining, Hecate Strait offers a wide range of labor market information from all over the province.
We try and gather information about the employment scene from the Alberta border to Haida Gwaii, up into the Peace River, Dawson Creek, Fort St. John area, so that we can identify those opportunities for people. If they come in, sit down with us and discuss what they're looking for.
Hecate also offers a self-employment benefits program, which helps people get on the path to starting up their own business. Like Retraining, the SEB program does offer financial assistance.
There's $315 a week at the present time. So there are some opportunities there for people that want to work home-based businesses or are looking at areas that haven't been addressed in communities and they want to establish themselves.
Skeena Cellulose's Pulp Workers Union, which represents the largest number of employees, is adamant about the need for retraining. Local 4 President Frank DiBartolo says the union's younger members will probably need it the most because they will more than likely be the ones cut loose first. However, DiBartolo says that's not the way it has to be.
Basically, what's going to happen here is all the people that are going to be laid off are going to be the young people. So we need a form of retraining for these young people so that they can get on with their lives. Now, there also could be other help here. If we could get a severance package or a retirement package for our senior people, in our view, that would probably be the best, because then what it would mean is the older people will leave the workforce and we would have work for the young people.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Unlike its portrayal in movies, noise does not trigger avalanches. Avalanches are caused by 4 factors: a steep slope, snow cover, a weak layer in the snow cover, and a trigger. Let us return the archives with Richard Eckert.
These days, the backcountry is enticing more snowmobilers, snowboarders, and skiers than it ever has.
Probably different attraction for different people. Of course, one of the things that attracts a lot of people is fresh snow, powder snow, untracked snow. Lots of people just like to be out in the wilderness on their own or with a partner, just away from crowds. That's an attraction. It's beautiful back there.
This last weekend marked Avalanche Awareness Days, a free public weekend event based at many local ski areas across Canada. Up at Shames Mountain, the Terrace and Prince Rupert Mount Remo Backcountry Societies worked together to increase public awareness about the dangers of avalanches.
The biggest danger is avalanches, and there is a very high danger in a lot of places in the terrace area for avalanches, and people should be aware and know what the risks are.
Seems to me, I've been skiing the backcountry for a lot of years, and recently it seems to be a real explosion of people getting back there, especially younger people. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if they're really aware or they have the proper gear. I'd like to think so. The opportunity is there for them to take courses and get themselves outfitted with the proper gear and knowledge.
According to the Canadian Avalanche Association, since 1970, 220 people have been killed in avalanches in Canada. In the first half of this century, avalanche accidents occurred mostly to people driving through or working in avalanche terrain. But today, these accidents are becoming a reality primarily to people during recreational pursuits. The number of snowmobilers, backcountry snowboarders, and skiers caught in avalanches have dramatically increased in recent years.
The backcountry area is a dangerous area. I mean, a few years ago, some of the Ministry of Highways Transportation people were killed in an avalanche doing avalanche control work, and it can happen. And I'm aware of several people who were buried in avalanches in the Shames backcountry area, although they were prepared and were able to be dug out. So it can happen, and people who aren't prepared can be in serious trouble.
The Canadian Avalanche Association also says that avalanches that catch recreationists are most often than not triggered by members of the same party, whether they are on foot, snowboards, or snowmobiles.
Be aware of what the snowpack might be like. If there is a danger of an avalanche, you have to know what sort of terrain you're looking at so you don't go on terrain that could avalanche.
Knowledge is very important in how you determine that level of risk. You know, what's a beautiful line one day for cranking some very beautiful turns on your board, one day can be a very hazardous line to take 2 days later. So people have to be aware, and when they go into the backcountry, they should know what the safest routes to take are to go up and whether or not it's safe to ski a certain line.
Statistics show the best, if not single chance a buried person has for survival is for rescue by another member of the group. Unfortunately, an avalanche victim is unlikely to survive if the assistance of a rescue group has to be called upon. The Mount Remo Backcountry Society says that transceivers are the single most effective way to locate a buried victim. 75% of all people who have died in avalanches were not wearing avalanche transceivers.
And everybody who's in the backcountry would wear this on their body, harness it on their body, and it would always be in the transmit mode. Then if that person is buried in an avalanche, then their partners who they're skiing with, they're snowmobiling with, their partners could take their transceiver and put it on to receive, and then following a pattern of the signals, the transmitted signals, you can locate the buried victim and dig them out. And you'd use your handy shovel that you're carrying in your pack with you to dig them out.
And the number one word of advice backcountry pros have to offer: get educated and always be prepared for the worst if you do decide to head out into the backcountry.
I would definitely recommend that people who would venture into the backcountry make themselves prepared with the knowledge of snow conditions and avalanche conditions and with the proper gear. Otherwise, you can die. Yet.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The F-100, the F-250, and the F-350 pickup trucks have been around since 1953, but the actual F-150, which eventually replaced the smaller F-100, did not make its debut until 1975. Last year, almost 125,000 F-Series units were sold. Let us return the archive with Shane DeYoung.
There are so many things to consider when purchasing a vehicle. Should I buy new or used, standard or automatic? And what can I really afford to pay? The first step for any purchase is research.
People need to ask themselves a few questions when they're thinking about buying vehicles. How many people in your family, what are you going to use it for, those sorts of things. And we're going to help you do that when you get to the lot as part of our steps, because the last thing we want to do is put you into something that doesn't suit your needs. And there's a lot of helpful tools in order to do some research. You can look on the internet. There's a lot of books to help you when you're looking for used vehicles, lemonade books and whatnot, to help you decide what you're looking for.
We do see a lot of people coming in looking for information about cars, and new cars is probably one of the most sought after topics from a reference point of view that people come in here for. I think usually they already have an idea for a car in mind, so they want to come in here and they would like to check consumer reports. This one's a used car guide, but every year they come out with a new used car and a new car guide.
Many consumers are weary about sales reps at dealerships, feeling they're going to be ripped off. A new system of keeping track of who's selling cars in the province is being welcomed by reputable dealers.
Something that is coming down the pipe is something called the Motor Dealer Standards Council in BC. It's almost like a self-governed arm of the government for the car business. We're going to be self-governed, and you're not going to be able to buy a vehicle in the province of BC unless you buy it from somebody that's certified. Salespeople are going to have to certify themselves with the province. Dealerships are going to have to be certified, and it's going to push a lot of used car dealers, simple used car dealers, out of the market, because when you get the car dealer reputation is stemmed from people getting ripped off, and you get more of that from somebody that's not associated to a manufacturer.
If you find a vehicle that you're interested in purchasing, make sure you cover all the bases. And if it is a used vehicle, know its history.
Used vehicles, there's a few things that are a little bit different than new, because you've got the question mark about what's happened to the vehicle, is there anything wrong with it? A good thing at Totem Ford here and most dealerships, they usually put most of your used vehicles through the service department when you take them in on trade. So a lot of the safety related items are taken care of. A lot of the things that have gone wrong with the vehicle are fixed. But a good thing to do, and something I recommend to everybody that comes and buys a used vehicle here, is to take it to an impartial third party to have it checked out. And then if you do come and you want to buy the car, you know that if there's some things wrong with it, you know that that's what you have to deal with. Because a lot of times you're not going to get a perfect vehicle when you buy it secondhand.
And before you commit to purchasing anything, use your consumer skills and do a little investigating.
First thing to do is take a quick walk around the vehicle and just take a look perhaps at the tires. Tire wear can tell you a lot of things. If the front tires are worn off, you might have an alignment problem. You might have loose or worn front end parts. So take a look at the tires, see what condition they're in. Condition of the body of the vehicle can give you some indication of the history of the vehicle, if it's been smashed or if it's all dented, you know, if the customer has been looking after it or not. Do they wash it regularly? That sort of thing. The best thing to do, once you've had a quick inspection of it, is to take it into a qualified person and get them to check it. For the money it costs, that's probably the best insurance policy you can have.
Make sure to keep the big picture in mind before purchasing a vehicle so you don't get stuck with something you don't want or can afford down the road.
We do see people fall in the trap of leasing a vehicle and ending up with a value that they have to pay that ends up being more than the value of the vehicle after 2 years or 3 years, whatever the term of the lease. So whether you're going to lease or buy, you really need to look at what the total cost is going to be. If you're financing over 5 years, take what the total payments are over 5 years, which includes the interest, and that's what you're actually paying for the car. And, the trade-in values and all those things, you need to look at the whole picture, not just what my monthly payment's going to be for the first year. You need to look at what it's going to be until that vehicle is paid off.
If you have decided to purchase a vehicle and need a loan, a formula can be used by a financial institution to see if you qualify.
That formula is your total debt payments, including your mortgages, your mortgage payment, your credit card, your property taxes, cannot exceed 40% of your gross income. Your gross income is before taxes and UIC and all those other wonderful things that come off our paychecks. So with that in mind, you can go and drop into your credit union and find out what the payments would be on different levels of loans, whether it's $10,000, $20,000 or $30,000, depending on what type of car you're looking for.
Some dealerships are offering 0% financing, which is a good option to consider when buying a new vehicle. So make sure you shop around. Your best weapons when it comes to buying a vehicle is knowing what you want, knowing what you can afford, and sometimes knowing when to just walk away.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
As the old saying goes, pets aren't just for Christmas, they're for life. It's very easy to fall in love with a cute kitten or adorable puppy, but with an average lifespan of 10 to 15 years, it's a long-term commitment. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives to learn more about responsible pet ownership.
Yes, pets.
Kittens and puppies, cute but a handful. Many people don't fully understand the responsibility that is connected to owning a pet and in turn are not responsible pet owners. Pet overpopulation is an increasing problem, a problem that is directly linked to spreading fatal diseases in cats and dogs.
Pet overpopulation is when people allow their pets to breed because they think that the puppies and kittens are so cute, which they all are. Then they find that they can't find homes for them, so that they either dump them or they bring them into a shelter situation.
It's such a broad-based problem because there's so many animals that are actually, there's feral cats in this community that no one even knows about, and they're just, it's hard. You have to trap them, you have to collect them. There's people that aren't taking their animals to be spayed, to be neutered. And it just snowballs on itself. So there's a lot out there that people don't even seem to realize. It's like a little underworld of animals, but that the average population just doesn't see.
Unwanted pets are showing up anywhere and everywhere when their owners finally realize they're not cut out for the task. And it's a common misconception that these animals will be able to fend for themselves.
If you end up taking a cat, for instance, people think, well, they're great mousers, they'll survive out there. But when they're a domestic animal and they're used to being hand-fed and their food is brought to them, cats will go hunt the birds and the mice. But what happens in the wintertime when the food isn't available? They don't survive, or you end up with a situation like what has in a lot of places, like out in the hot springs there. They have animals dropped off all the time, mostly cats, and they're out there breeding and they're multiplying like crazy out there. And they are surviving because the odd person, when they do see them, they do feed them.
If you look at some of the shelters, people may not even realize it, but dogs and cats are heaved over the 10-foot fence, and just dropped off. Puppies are dropped off in boxes outside the door because people can't get rid of them, and they don't want to pay the $10 drop-off fee. Times are tough. Dogs and cats are being abandoned as people leave town. They're leaving town, and they just don't take their dog or cat with them. And so we find dogs and cats that are left roaming the streets. I had one brought up to me hit by a car with a broken back, and the owners had left the week before. So it's a sad situation, but I mean, you can control it with spaying and neutering, and it would be nice to see people get a little bit more responsible.
We actually had a litter of kittens that came in from the city dump. They were found out there in a box that was closed in. We've actually had several cases like that. There is no need, and it's very sad that, we understand that if your cat got out there and got caught with got pregnant before you actually got it to the vet, but there's no reason in this world for anybody to go and take an animal and dump it like that. We are more than willing to take them in. Our door is always open, and all we ask is that people come in and surrender them to us and let us take care of it.
The main advice animal shelter employees and veterinarians have: get your animals spayed or neutered.
If you can reduce movement of animals, a lot of animals that are intact, they tend to roam, and if you can reduce populations, you're definitely going to be controlling the animals, and you also will probably be controlling the disease. Right now we have feline AIDS in certain areas of terrace. We have leukemia that spread easily through large populations of cats. We have a small parvo outbreak in dogs going on right now, and a lot of this is simply vaccination and controlling populations. And if you can do that, you probably can cut out the disease that is going to affect most responsible owners' animals.
Finally, and most importantly, veterinarians recommend you make sure you know what you're getting into before picking up a new pet. Don't put yourself in a situation that you aren't prepared for.
It's nice for the kids to see it, but the kids aren't there 6 months later when all these little kittens are a little older and they're all being euthanized. If you can't find a good responsible owner for your kittens and puppies, and you're just thinking about it just to hum and haw to have a litter, I don't think it's worthwhile even considering it.
John Little was the only son in a family of 7 children, and when he wasn't quite 18, he went overseas to defend his country in the Second World War. But on Christmas Day, 1941, when the Japanese overran Hong Kong, he was taken prisoner and died of injuries suffered in captivity 6 months later. But on Saturday, members of his family, including 2 sisters, Margaret Casey and Grace Warner, gathered at the X2 rest area west of Terrace, along with local politicians and Highways Ministry officials, to unveil a sign that will forever mark this place in his memory. The falls were officially named after John Little back in 1993, but his sister Margaret always thought that since John's final resting place was so far away, that something commemorating his life should be a bit closer to home. And as of May 8, 1999, something is.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our majesty within. I'm Robert Pictou.